Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Angela Brennan and this video brings you Spellbinders Stitching Die of the Month October 2024 Merry and Bright Cloche. I actually totally forgot about this video. I thought I'd completed all of the October 2024 Spellbinders Clubkits videos, but this is a video and I forgot to publish. But here you go. It's a very simple die set that's got a cloche, a sentiment, a frill for the cloche, and obviously the tree. I die cut the individual elements of the stitching die in white card as well as some colored card. The stitching die, the dome itself, you can die cut the shape of it and then attach the two dies to create the dome shape with the frill at the bottom. So it's just quite straightforward, a die set, do the die cutting. It's the stitching and assembly that's where the creativity comes in my opinion. This circular die and the circle stitching die can be used to put as a tree topper or just use it as little tree baubles. It's quite versatile what you use it for. I start off by using size 24 DMC tapestry needle and I use the Diamant metallic thread light gold. If you're a beginner to stitching dies, I wouldn't suggest using metallic thread as a starting point. Metallic thread is a little bit more challenging to stitch with because you need to maintain the tautness of the thread at every stitch. So it is a little bit harder to do the stitching with. If you're a beginner, I would suggest using cotton thread, DMC cotton thread, or even Luca S cotton thread. I start off by securing the start of the thread at the back of the die cut with some sticky tape. And if you see, I'm always holding the thread at the back so that it maintains its tautness before I do the next stitch. It's really easy to do the stitching of these die cuts because you've got etched lines guiding you as to where each stitch should go. So it's pretty much just following that and then securing the thread again at the end with a sticky tape. I find that easier. It doesn't add too much bulk. Certain shapes you can secure the thread in a different way by doing stitching over it, back stitching. This shape, sticky tape will do it. And the same with the tree die cut. This one is just vertical lines, so it's easier to do. Now, if you do cut it with some colored card or even patterned paper, and if it's a little bit soft or it'll be harder to stitch. So if you want to do that, back it up with some heavier cardstock, attach it together, and then do your stitching. It might be easier to do that. I'll show you again how I do this stitching of the tree. If you're going to use metallic thread, how best it is to secure it at the back while you're stitching. So carry on watching the video and I'll show you a different way to do it. Now this little tree stump at the bottom or tree base, it's just following the stitches or the edge lines on the die cut and doing a crisscross stitch. Little fiddly because the die cut is so tiny, but you can choose to either stitch it or leave it unstitched, or alternatively just die cut the shape of the tree stump because you can separate the dies and just let a different color come through the stitched holes. It's quite versatile this way. You can either have the stitching holes there or not have the stitching holes at all and just die cut the shape of the tree stump and attach it accordingly. Now I'm going to do some ink blending with the background of the dome. I'm using 3 distress ink here. I've got Chipped Sapphire, Price Ribbon, and Faded Jeans. Per usual, when you're doing any kind of ink blending to be successful, make sure you're using the right card. And here I'm using the Strathmore Bristol Smooth 300 series card, which is ideal for ink blending. Domed foams, and make sure your ink pads are nice and juicy to allow the ink to be blended nicely. Here I'm using blues because I thought it's a nice contrast to the tree. Using the splatter white opaque watercolor to do some splatters. I keep the splatter white in this little container here because even when it dries, I don't want to waste any of the splatter white. I can add whenever I want to, but I also leave it there because all I need to do is spritz some water in it to activate the dried splatter white, and there I have the nice consistency of the splatter white. If you want tiny splatters, leave it quite thick, or if you want it a little bit bigger splatters, you can make it a little bit more watery, or you can change the size of your brush. Practice the splatters with different consistency of the splatter white and different size brushes to dictate the size of your splatter. I assembled the card with using my liquid glue. It's just attaching that background because I wanted the gold to come through the little holes on the domed area that I have done some ink blending with different hues of blue. I'm attaching the little frill that I have stitched with some dimensional tape because I want it to pop a little bit before I place the die cut sentiment there in light blue. So that's going to be where the tree will be based on. So I'm just again using some liquid glue to attach it. I am not going to pop it up with any dimensional tape here because I want it to be more inset into that dome. So once I'm happy with that, I start putting the tree on it. The tree, you can either pop it up with some dimensional tape or even put some blank card behind it just so that it's a smoother backing to place onto the dome. I decided to place some dimensional tape behind the tree, the stitched tree die cut, place it on the stump that I've already put there so that it pops up a little bit before I place the little star die cut. I don't use the circle die cut here, but I do use it in the later cards that I do. This is one of two cards that I do that I use the domed cloche, but I decide to use the tree to do a couple more cards. I do like the tree element, the stitched tree element in this set, so I do use quite a bit of it. So here's what I'm showing you, a little trick when I'm using metallic thread. I stop halfway through the stitching, attach a sticky tape to hold the thread behind the die cut, and then I continue stitching, and I do it a couple of times before I finish stitching the tree. There's two reasons I do this. Firstly, because I'm using the metallic thread, it's easier. Secondly is because I've die cut this on a not so heavy cardstock. The cardstock is quite a light cardstock, so it's harder to do these kind of stitches. I should have backed it up with some heavier white cardstock or heavier cardstock, period, before I did the stitching. But, no harm done. This is another way to be able to continue stitching if you get into issues when you're doing your stitching, because these are quite long vertical stitches. Therefore, having a sturdy cardstock would help. I decided to do a background, and the background I'm using the embossing folder of the month from October 2024 called Checkered Argyle. I spread some water behind the card panel to soften the fibers before I put it through the embossing machine so it doesn't crack. I place some heavy objects onto the embossed panel and let it dry, and then it dries nice and straight. There's no warping in the card. Now I'm ready to place it onto the card. I decide to cut it a little bit smaller and then place it into the middle of the card with some backing or some foam sheet so there's a little bit of dimension to the embossed card panel before I place all the 3 trees onto the card. It's a pretty simple assembly of this card. It's just the elements are quite pretty. You just need to take a little bit of time to put them together. I decided to use the little string light die cuts from the Spellbinders Small Die of the Month from October 2024 so that I can put some string lights onto each of the trees. Now I decided to use this because I like the combinations of the blues and greens, teals. I think it goes really well, and I use a metallic cardstock to cut the little lights. It's a little bit fiddly because these are quite tiny die cuts, but I just think it just adds to that stitched tree. It's a lot of shine between that metallic thread as well as the glitter card, but I think it just adds to the sparkle of the card. I really hope you enjoyed the video. If you do, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. And when you do subscribe, remember to press that notification bell so you're alerted when new videos are uploaded. The sentiment I've hot foiled is from the BetterPress of the month from October 2024. This video is coming out a little bit late. I usually tell you at this point how I'm going to put all my videos from the Clubkits of the month into a playlist, but in fact I've already released the playlist, but I just forgot to put this video out there. So what I'm going to do is once this video is published, I will add it to the playlist that's already been released. For the topper here, I do use the little circles. I decided to use that instead of the stars. Now, I did not do any stitching on these little circles, but what I did is I die cut the circles. I used a circle die and die cut 3 circles and attach the stitched lighter gold die cut onto the darker gold solid circles. I use a liquid glue for this. This media picker tool is so invaluable when using these kind of dies because it just picks it up and attaches it to the die cut so easily. I put a little gem to the middle of the die cuts. Maybe the gem is a little bit too big for it, but I decided to go with it. And then attaching these little toppers here. Now I should have realized that they won't stick because it's quite raised. The tree is already raised and popped up with some dimensional tape. So I should really put a pop-up foam square at the behind the tree. That's what I do. I put it behind the tree so it's level and it's easier to attach the topper. So I go ahead and do that, and again use my media picker tool to pick up the little tiny circles and indeed even tinier foam squares. And there you go, a simple card without using the domed cloche, just using the trees, embossed background and a hot foiled sentiment. Again, these trees, you don't have to stitch them. You don't have to stitch them if you don't want to stitch them. But I do love stitching. If you followed my videos long enough, you know how much I adore a stitching die. So all of the stitching dies, you do not have to stitch them if you don't want to. Here I've stitched 3 different what I would call metal colors. I'm attaching a thicker white cardstock die cut behind each of these trees so it's easier to attach it onto the card, because once you've got that behind it, you don't need to put a pop-up. You can just put liquid glue and stick it onto the card directly. Here again, I'm using these string lights die cuts from the Spellbinders Small Die of the Month, October 2024. But I'm cutting the string lights a little bit smaller to accommodate the width of the tree because I want to make it look as though the tree lights are going around the tree. So, and then I'm attaching some various colored metallic card. I think I use silver, bronze and gold for the trees, the 3 trees that are there, so that and I mix and match them. Because it's so tiny and it's hard to put the liquid glue on it, I use this tweezer to apply glue to the tiny die cuts and attach them to the tree. I think this looks pretty, and I use the same approach that I had with the previous card to assemble the trees onto a card. This time I used the star die cut as the tree topper. If you've noticed, whenever I create a card, I tend to use quite a few of the club kits in the assembly of the card, because when Spellbinders releases their club kits each month, they always release it on a theme. So there's always a theme related to each of the club kits, and they all go so well together. This month, obviously, it's all about Christmas. So the theme of the release of club kits, all of the club kits individually, all the options go so well together. And that's why I also store my Spellbinders club kits by month, because they go so well together. Unless, of course, if they're very heavy on sentiments, then I do keep them in a little container where I have all the sentiments so I can reach out to them quite easily. Again, I've decided to use an embossed card panel as the background and done some splatters with some metallic watercolor. I backed the embossed panel with some foam sheet to give it some dimension, which means I don't have to do any popping up of the trees. I just put it straight on with some liquid glue. This sentiment is from the bonus item from the Spellbinders Club Kits, October 2024. So you can only get this bonus item if you buy the deluxe caboodle. They don't sell it individually. It's 4 sentiments, BetterPress plates, which you can also hot foil. And I hot foiled it here. This also sentiment is quite versatile because you can either use it inside the card or on the front of the card. And I've done both in the various cards I've done. I think I counted the other day all the cards that I've done for this month with this October 24 Cupkits. I've done 50 cards, and you can see all the 50 cards in the video that I've recently released, where I've included the playlist of all the videos in that playlist. So 50 cards is quite a bit, but it's really handy because I do need loads of Christmas cards, and that's why I think it's a really good theme to have around this time of the month. Again, here I forget to put a pop-up behind the topper, and I do that. And here you've got metal colored trees that I've stitched and added some string lights with a sparkly sentiment. For the next card, I'm going to do a slightly different assembly, and I'm going to use the clear stamp of the month from October 2024, and these landscape dies are from the Spellbinders large die of the month from September 2024, so last month really. I popped the sentiment directly, or rather stamped and embossed the sentiment directly onto the landscape die cut, and I'm just going to assemble these 3 stitched trees with the snowman from the clear stamp of the month. I do like the snowman. If you do check out the video that I've done just on the clear stamp of the month, I do something called mirror stamping. So I've got the 2 snowmen that face each other, and I just think it's really cute. So I do like adding techniques when I do these videos, so it just makes the die set or the stamp or the particular option for that club kit a little bit more versatile. I'm just blending in a little bit of distressing tumble glass. Tumble glass is quite a light blue, just to add a little bit color to the snowbanks, if you like. That's what these landscape dies or layers are meant to indicate or meant to represent. So I'm adding just a little bit blue. Once it dries, it's quite light, the blue, and that's how I want it, just so that I can add the trees and the snowman. I do quite a bit of dimensional tape here because I do want it to have a couple of layers. So this card is a little bit thick in depth, so it'll be not really post friendly, but it doesn't matter. Sometimes you just need that dimension to give that card the pop. I really hope you find the different ways I use these sets quite inspirational and gives you ideas to create something different rather than the one way that is shown on the packaging, because these elements that come with these sets, these options in the Spellbinders Club Kits, you can use it in so many different ways, especially if it's a Christmas theme. It's a theme I really enjoy, so I do find different ways to put these cards together. Let me know in the comments below on what you think of these different ways that I've assembled the card with loads and loads of dimensional tape. I just wanted it to be able to sit on that landscape quite a bit. I might have gone a little bit too much with the dimensional tape. So I do cut off the excess so that it sits flat on the card front. That's the whole idea of using the dimensional tape, so that you just make up for the difference in the height or the depth of the card front. I've listed all the products I've used in the description below as much as I can, because there is a word limit to the description and I can't put every single thing, but I think I've put the main items. But if there's anything I've missed out, just ask me in the comments below and I'll see whether I can add that on or direct you to the right place. All of Spellbinders Club Kits, monthly Club Kits, can be ordered between the dates of 6th and 27th of each month. And here's a card that I've assembled. And the next couple of cards that I assemble is primarily focused in using the tree as well. Before I do that, I add some glossy accents to all of the lights on the trees. I just think it adds that extra sparkle. Once it's dried, it also gives it a little bit of dimension. This is a very sparkly card indeed. Even the cardstock has a shine. For the next card, I'm going to do what I call a little bit of an embossing folder technique. It's quite a basic one, where I've embossed the card and I'm just going to swipe some ink onto the raised parts of that. Now, initially, I want to use this as a background, but after doing the swiping, I find it a bit too dark, too stark to put the trees onto it. I decide to just use that as a first part of the background, and I put another card onto it. Again, very basic assembly here. I've just stitched 3 different colors or 3 different hues of teal onto 3 die cut trees, and I'm going to attach it. So initially I want to attach it onto this embossed panel, which I've also inked, but I find that a little bit too busy, so I decide to put another lighter teal card on the middle of the card and attach the trees that way. I really hope you find all these ideas that I've put together here interesting and helpful to get your creative juices going when you get your club kits, or even if you use any other products that you have in your craft stash to create Christmas cards or do your crafting. I just find sometimes when you watch an idea or watch someone do a card, you might not follow that, but you might get an idea to do something else, perhaps even better. But do let me know if that triggers some amazing ideas, or if you've made cards that look similar and you think it gives you that additional inspiration to whet your creativity. This is a Festive Circle Sentiment press plate which I have hot foiled, and the cute penguin is from the small die of the month. The sentiment that I've hot foiled is from the BetterPress die of the month. Here are all the cards that I've created. Here's the domed cloche, and I've created another card also here, teal and green background with a red frill and similar looking, and that's why I decided to branch out with the ideas of this stitching die set by using the trees as the main focus point, because I do like Christmas trees, and those little string-like die cuts are adorable together. Not to mention the snowman from the clear stamp of the month, the penguin. If you watch my video on the small die of the month, you will see how much of the penguin I do. I also do a technique called reverse die cutting with the penguin that I show in my small die of the month video. So do check that out. That video and all the videos that I've used, the various options and club kits from this month, will be in the playlist. I will include this video in the playlist as well. For ease, I will include a link to the playlist in the description below so you can check it out. Here are all the cards that I've created using the stitching die of the month, close-up pictures of them. Thank you so much for stopping by. Happy crafting, and I'll catch you at my next video. Do take care.